Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have some masculine card ideas that I want to share with you. Now, these card ideas are perfect for Father's Day, of course, or really for any other occasion. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 3 different card ideas that I want to share that feature the exact same focal point, but just a different card layout. Now, the cool thing about these card ideas is that you can use them to create cards for Father's Day, which is right around the corner, or you can use them to create cards for really just about any occasion. Now, the cards in this video feature the Stampin' Up set called A Good Man. So I'm going to be using some of the stitched rectangle dies today to create the focal point for my card and actually to create some of the other pieces. So if you do not have these stitched rectangular dies, that's okay. I'll give you the dimensions so that you can just cut a regular rectangular shape. So we're going to be doing a little bit of coloring with the stamping blends today, and then I'm going to show you these fun and simple layouts. So let's get started. Okay, so this very first card that I have to share with you just kind of features a fun way to use some of the greetings from this particular stamp set. So you can do this with any greetings that you have. So I'm actually going to show you how to use the Stamparatus today to create this fun little background design. But we're also going to be using the exact same focal point on every single card. So I'm going to just show you how to create this little focal point first, and then we'll go ahead and stamp the background. So the focal point is being created on a 1 3/4 by 3 1/8 inch piece of white cardstock. So I cut this out with that die, but if you don't have the die, now you have the measurements that you can use to create this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just ink up one of the images from this set, and I'm using some black Memento ink simply because we're going to be doing some coloring with the stamping blends. So the black Memento ink is a great ink for doing this coloring because it doesn't bleed. And for my coloring, I have a variety of different colors that I'm using. This first one is just the Misty Moonlight. So I'm just going to add some color to the pants here. And then I'm just going to show you a little trick for lightening up some of the coloring. So I really like coloring with the stamping blends. They're very easy to use. And as you can see, I can color right over the lines and you can still see all those details from the shirt. So we used Misty Moonlight, this one was Smoky Slate, and now I'm using the dark Daffodil Delight, which is almost like crushed Curie, which is actually the color that I was going for. And then I'm just using a couple other colors. I'm using the bronze, then I'm using just a little bit of ivory. So this is the basic focal point that I'm creating for all 3 of the cards. So the coloring is exactly the same. Okay, so once you have this colored, then what I did is I took what's called a color lifter and I just kind of ran it along to pull up the color. It basically just kind of pulls up color, and you can do it in certain spots, but I kind of did it all over the image because it kind of gives you that whitewashed look, I guess, you know, just kind of that faded look, and that's kind of the look that I was going for. All right, so once we have that done, then I just took the Light Pool Party Stampin' Blend, and then I just kind of added some of this color all around the image just to kind of highlight it so it dries pretty light. So this is just a nice way to accent this image, you know, just so it doesn't look like my image is just kind of hanging on the paper. Kind of gives the impression that there's this little background behind it. So I kind of like this little technique. And this will all dry a lot lighter than what you see here. And it'll just give it a really nice look. Okay, so that's how you create the focal point. Okay, so I brought in my Stamparatus. So this kind of replaces these little acrylic blocks. So instead of stamping my images using this acrylic block, I'm actually going to use this plate. It's a clear acrylic plate. that all the stamped images will fit on here, and I can just push this down onto my paper to create whatever it is that I am working on. So for this first card, what we want to do is add all of these little greetings all over this piece of white cardstock. Now you can just stamp these individually, or you can line them up on your paper and then stamp them all at once. So that's what I'm going to show you now. So I have a piece of white cardstock, which is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And so I'm just going to line it up with one of the grids, you know, one of these little squares here on my grid paper. And I'm going to take my little focal point here, and I'm going to lay that on my card. So I want it right about here. And then I'm going to take all these stamp images, and I'm going to lay them around that focal point. So that says, "Thanks to you, I grew up loved." So now I can slide this focal point down a little bit. And then we will add this one over here, which says, "Being a good dad starts with being a good man." And then we have another one that says, "It's your day." And then "Relax your way." We'll put that on the bottom. So the nice thing about doing it this way is you can just position them how you want them. And then this one, "You're the best." So now I'm just going to take this acrylic block. It's on this little hinge, so it's a big, huge acrylic block. And I'm just going to lay this over the top and grab all of my stamp images. And now I'll slide this over so you can actually see what I'm doing. And so basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ink all of these up. So I'm using Misty Moonlight, Crushed Curie, and I'm also using Smoky Slate. So it really just matches all the stamping blends that I was using. So now I'm just going to, so this is the little tricky part. I'm just gonna ink all these up. So I'm just kind of starting with my yellow, with my lighter color. And if you get ink on the other images, you can always wipe it off. And we'll take the blue. So this does work better if you have, you know, those little Stampin' spots, but it also works with your regular ink pads. You just gotta hold them upside down. So either way will work just fine. So these are all inked up in all different colors. So now we should just be able to stamp these. And voila, there we go. So how cool is that? All right, so now we have our background stamped here so we can make the rest of our card. So the next thing I did is I just cut a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock. So this is just your regular size cardstock, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and it's scored in the middle at 4 1/4 inches. So that's how you create the base of the card. And then we're going to take this cool little background that we stamped, and we're just going to add this to our card front. Then I cut a 2 by 3 3/8 inch piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and I'm just going to adhere this focal point to this piece of cardstock. So one of the things you'll see about using the stamping blends is that they do bleed through. So I highly recommend that you create little layers for your card if you're going to be using stamping blends. All right, so we'll add that, and this is going to go right here in the spot where we laid all of those greetings around it. So the next thing I did is just took a 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. So this is just a 1/2 inch wide. And I'm just gonna snip a little banner into the end, and then I'm gonna add these just as a little decorative piece to our focal point before we add it to the card. So I'm just cutting 2 of them. So scrap pieces work really well for this. So just find some scrap pieces of paper and cut them down to just a 1/2 inch. So we are going to add these, and I just kind of want them peeking out the side. Okay, so I just added some dimensionals to the back, and now we'll just kind of pop this up right in that space that we left when we were doing our stamping. And that's it. So there you go. Of course, you can use any sentiments, any greetings that you want to create this style of card. There's lots of options, so just kind of play around with what you have on hand. And of course, if you have this stamp set, this works out perfect for a Father's Day card. So card number 2 is kind of a quick and simple design compared to the one we just did. So let me show you how to create this. We're going to use the exact same focal point again. So we're going to start with a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock for the base of our card. So this time we're going to use some designer paper. So this is a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of pattern paper, and you can use any pattern paper that you have. Next, I cut a 2 by 4 inch piece of pattern paper. So I'm just using pattern paper from the In Good Taste Designer Series paper pack. But again, you can use any pattern paper that you have on hand. Next, we're going to adhere our focal point. So I created this in the same way that I showed you for the first card. So I'm not going to show it to you again, but that's the focal point that we're using. So I stamped these all these little greetings on a piece of yellow cardstock, and then I just took my scissors and cut them all out so that I could create this little cluster of words. So this just says, "Thanks to you, I grew up loved." And I'm just really adhering them kind of, you can see I'm just kind of rotating them back and forth. So I start this direction, then I rotate it down, then this one kind of points up, and then this one points down, and then this one points up. So just kind of a fun way to use your greetings to, just add a little bit more depth and dimension to your card. And then you can leave the card as is, or you can just add some little embellishments. So I'm just adding some of the gilded gems, but the card looks really cool even, without these additional little embellishments. So, all right, so there you go. That's card number 2. Okay, and this last card design just has a lot of different layers on it, and I kind of used a variety of different rectangular shapes, but I also added some texture in the background. But again, the focal point is the same as it was in the other 2 cards. So let me show you how to make this one. So this time you're going to start with a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and I did some embossing with a 3D embossing folder, which is called Painted Texture. So it has kind of this fun textured background on it. Then I cut a 3 by 4 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock. So I used the rectangular die to create this piece, but you can just cut that piece at 3 by 4 1/4. And so what we're going to do first is I'm going to just stamp in the upper left and lower right hand corner. So I'm just using a bit of smoky slate ink. So I'm going to start on the bottom here, and we'll go up on the top. So that will be our greeting. And then I cut a 1 3/8 by 2 3/4 inch piece of crushed curie cardstock. Daffodil Delight works well too. And then I used, again, the rectangular dies. So I cut 2 of them because what I want to do is layer this together like this and then add it to my card. So it's just kind of a fun way to add more layers and use these little rectangular shapes. So I'm going to just adhere this piece first. So basically what I'm doing is just leaving a little bit of matting and just kind of adhering this out of the corner here and just leaving just a little bit of matting around it. And then I'm going to do the same thing up on this side. We'll add some glue on this side. And that looks about good. So it creates just a nice little focal point, and it also hopefully fits perfectly in here with our greeting. So by stamping the greeting in the top and the bottom, then you have this fun little focal point that goes around it. So we'll bring back the base of our card, and then we're going to start by adding this white piece that we did our stamping on. So that's going to go directly in the center of our card front. And then I just cut a 1 1/2 by 4 1/4 inch piece of pattern paper, and I'm just going to adhere that right across the center over the top of that white piece. And then we can go ahead and add our layered focal point. And then for the finishing touch, we will just add some of these gilded gems, and that's it. So it's just a fun and simple layout, but it has lots of different layers to give it depth and dimension. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 3 easy layouts that you can use to create all sorts of masculine card ideas. And the best part is these layouts really work with any stamp set or supplies that you have on hand, so get creative with it. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.